Howdy! My name is Callum, also known as Northern Dice, and today I am going to be reviewing Ganymede by Sorry We Are French, sent to us for unbiased review by Hachette Games. Ganymede is a 2 to 4 player set collection game with the tiniest bit of engine building, but I say that with the loosest sense, and it takes about 20 to 40 minutes to play. Here we have Ganymede set up for 2 players. The difference between 2, 3 and 4 player setup is the number of settlers that you have available. Settlers come in, of course, 4 flavours: yellow, blue, red and purple. The aim of the game is to have shuttles set off. These are the shuttle cards. They go onto this spot or onto this spot. Now these shuttles launch on different conditions. The first being that you must have a shuttle card there. So if we take one, place it onto this player's card there, and then you need to get settlers and move them from Earth to Mars to the shuttle. And then you have to meet the condition to launch the shuttle, with this one being 3 meeple of the same colour and this one being 1 of each colour meeple. Now the way that you actually gain meeple is through triggered conditions that you will get throughout the game. Now to start off, every player needs to take one of these tiles, which are called settler tiles. Now the settler tiles do different things based on which one you pick up. The first starting ones do obvious things, which are gain that colour settler and gain a shuttle card. Now every player starts the game with 4 settler cards, and you place 2 of them here and the other 2 get discarded. You place them face down in the idea that you prevent your opponent from seeing them. You are allowed to look at them, and the conditions for scoring are different for most of them. I've got 2 the same here, but of course you can get different ones where you score reputation based on the number of settler ships you have launched, colonist cards that you've got for both Mars and Earth, or just a straight 4 victory points with a bonus as well. Now, the game is sort of like a mini engine builder in the loosest way that I can call it an engine builder. So in example, if I were to take a turn for this player, we may choose to take this settler tile. And this settler tile says that we gain a red settler and we also gain a ship. So we'll place that there into this top slot. We then gain this settler and he would automatically go to Earth. Now you'll see that on Earth and Mars there are limits to the number of settlers that can be there. For Earth it is 6 and for Mars it is 5. Then we'd restack this and we would move on. Now the reason I say it's a bit like a mini engine builder is because you can trigger effects based on what you've already got. So in example, if I just quickly sift through these to find a tile of the same symbol, you'll notice that all of the settler tiles have different symbols: purple, blue, yellow, red and white. If you place a settler tile of the same variety of what you already have, you can trigger that settler tile's effect twice, or 3 times if you'd have 3. So an example here, I've just placed this one, so I can use this tile once, twice, and I can use it to gain a red or a blue. So in example here, I could gain 2 reds, 2 blues, or a red and a blue, and I'm going to choose to gain a red, and I'm going to choose to gain a blue. Now that's only one action that you can take on your turn. There are 2 other ones that you can take as well. The second one being to launch a colony ship. And the colony ships come in 2 flavours. You've got Earth and Mars. Now you can't launch a Mars colony ship if you have no settlers on Mars. Earth is where we're looking at the minute. And these are the options that we've got as it stands. We can launch colony ships based on the colour meeple that we have available to us. So the first thing I'm going to choose to do for this player is we're going to launch this colony ship, which requires 2 red settlers. It's still Earth. We take it and we will place that under the corresponding colour. Our meeple would be moved to the next colony, and we would be able to trigger this effect. And these circles with colours on them allow you to change the colour of your current meeples based on which colour it is. So if it is a red one, I could change the red for another colour or another colour for red, When it's white, it's wild, so I can change any meeple for any other. And looking what I have available here in Mars, I don't want to swap my reds out because I've got an effect there that I'd like. So instead, I'm going to choose to swap my blue for a purple. And then we restock this. And it is only ever one action per turn. And then if we were to go around again, we'll make sure we've got some cards there ready. We'll place that there. On this player's next turn, they may choose to get another settler card, and they're going to take this one. And it is, again, 2 reds, but it's for Mars. So they would place that underneath there, and they would move these guys to either here, or they could move one of them to here and one of them to here, or, at the player's discretion, they could choose to just launch these 2 off into space, never to be seen again, and effectively discard them. Now for this player it's going to make most sense to put them here because we're looking for 3 of the same and we've got 2 reds already, so that ship is ready to be set sail as soon as we've got a third one. But again, it comes back to this mini engine builder thing that I talked about earlier. With this card, I've placed this. I can now activate this effect as many times as I have cards of the same variety under here. So an example for this one, I can activate this effect once, twice. Now, it wouldn't make much difference on this one, but for different effects you can do different things. Which brings us on to the third type of action, where you can do these different mini actions, which aren't as impacting, but when built up can do a lot. So, we can choose to discard as many of these settler tiles as we want to do that many basic actions. Now we can't re-trigger these once they've been placed, they can only help trigger other effects, but the maximum is 3. So at some point we're going to have to discard these. So I'm going to choose to discard both of these to gain 2 basic actions. Now the basic actions are very much like what you'd get on the bottom of these cards, so it's worth being aware of what does what. So this one allows you to gain a settler of any colour. This allows you to move a settler from one colony to the next, so we could move this one to here, and we could even move them to there if we had 2 available. This allows you to change a settler's colour. This allows you to move along this track, which scores you points, and anytime you land on one of these and stop there, you would gain another basic action. If you were to land and end the game in this bracket, you'd get 1 victory point, 2 victory points, 4 victory points, 6 victory points. And the final one is to gain a settler ship. So just restock that while I see it. Now, if you were to get to the end of this, you have the bonus of being able to launch a settler ship regardless to what is on it. And let's say that we have played a fantastic game, we get to there, we can then launch this ship. We would get the scoring condition at the end of the game. So luckily for us, this one is we get 2 victory points for every single card, settler ship card, colony card, whatever they are, of that variety. So at the minute we're on 4 VP. And place that to the side. And as soon as we've got 4 cards, everyone else takes the same number of turns and the game ends. You could trigger it so that you have 5 ships because you have your third and then you trigger 2 at once. The game would still end after everyone else has had a turn. The other way that you can launch a ship by default, as you can see the symbol there, is by having 1 of each colour ready. And then you would gain that bonus as well. The only thing to be aware of is how you try and balance your actions. Because there's always something you can do, you'll always want to try and get rid of these as soon as you're fully stocked, so you want to try and get them that combine. And we found that in a 2-player game, it's very easy to get those combos going, it's very easy to get lots of these. But in a 4-player game, because there are only 4 of each card and they get restocked every turn, if you're looking for this card and you can see a couple of other people have got access to that, chances are it's going to go, so you need a backup plan. At smaller player counts is where we have played this primarily, and we have really thrived on that mini engine builder aspect. But again, I wouldn't necessarily call it an engine builder because your engine doesn't stay very long. By the time that you've decided what you're doing, how you're going to trigger it and the impact and the bonuses, you'll be getting rid of it. In the same way, what you've got here, these symbols won't matter, it matters that you've got cards. And the more cards you have, the better you'll do. But even then, if you're getting fantastic cards down there, you get, in example, this one, and place it down there. That's 3 of that symbol, so I'd get 3 red, so I'd get 3 of that. If I have no settlers, as much as it is extra points with that, it won't do me any favours. Just because you can't trigger it though, doesn't mean you don't get the bonuses, and if you can't trigger it, you just don't trigger it. So Ganymede's gameplay lends itself really well to letting players build up combos, which is the reason I kept referring to it as like a mini engine builder. But again, it is an engine builder in the loosest sense of the term, because as much as you're constantly building this engine, it's always been stripped away, and you're never gaining the benefits of what you specifically placed, only the fact that you placed it. But that doesn't mean that it's not enjoyable and you don't always get those combos. The game encourages you to look for those cards and choose the ones that maybe aren't going to be as beneficial straight away, but simply on that basis that they have that symbol, because you'll be able to then trigger other effects multitudes of times, which the game thrives on, because being able to trigger something more than once means you can effectively speed up some of the processes, like moving settlers from one place to another. Some of the cards, like an example of the colony cards, don't actually have a bonus, particularly those ones that just require a single settler, which makes it feel a bit redundant to gain unless you're going for a bonus ship in that respect. But at the same time, having that card there may then trigger other effects multitudes of times more often. But on that flip side, it might encourage you to choose something else that may be not as beneficial just to gain further bonuses later. I found it best to try and get a nice big blanket coverage of the different settler ship colours that I've got, because Sod's Law is 90% of the time I would just get this settler bonus ship that would trigger on the number of different colours that you've got. And it really helped me gain points. It's not a high scoring game though. My max score is 22, my partner's is 23, our average is between 15 and 17, and that's not because we're bad at the game, but because your bonus cards don't lend themselves to gain multitudes, masses of points. If anybody is managing to get 30, please explain to me how you're doing it, because I am really, really unable to. In terms of the actual player interaction, the game wants you to be competitive. Not in that sense that you need to try and spite other people, but if there is a good card, you want to try and get it. And as I said, if there is a card that you know you can get and other players can get in their terms before you, you're going to want to have some backup plans. You can only have so many settlers on any location at any time, and when you're moving them from Mars to a ship, sometimes it's worth doing just to send them off into space, into the God knows where abyss, letting them fend for themselves effectively. A bit cruel, I know, but it means that then Mars is clear, ready for more ships from Earth to move on. It's a bit of balance there. But in terms of the actual how you're going to interact with other people, you really aren't. It feels quite, I want to say Euro in some respects, because your opponent's actions will never affect you other than they may take something that you want. And that comes into the set collection element, because you're trying to collect sets to trigger those bonuses, and you don't want to have one random blue that you're never going to benefit from, unless of course it was to move a settler. There's always options available, and whether that is taking a settler card, banishing a settler card to gain basic actions, or doing something else, you can use your actions well. And I think that helps with the lack of analysis paralysis. We've not played any game where someone has sat there and had to think for a long time. You don't necessarily need to pay attention to other people's actions. You should, because it's a board game, it's meant to be a social element, but also because then you'll know what other players are gaining, what they're trying to do. You can maybe keep an eye out for which cards you want and who's likely to get it and how likely they are to get it before you. But it could be played entirely on that basis of you're playing for yourself. Other people are just doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. In terms of Ganymede's component quality and theme, component quality is astounding. I know that the boards are blank on the back, and I'm not a big fan of that. They could have put something on there, but it's not the end of the world. The actual boards themselves, really, really sturdy. The cards feel nice. The artwork is stunning. I love the artwork so much. It's very 80s sci-fi film, very The Last Starfighter or whatever it's called. It's awesome, really. The meeples aren't actually standard size either. The meeples are a little bit smaller than what you'd expect for a standard meeple, but I think that's just because it allows you to easily place the meeples on the board, and you're not likely to lose track of them because they're small enough that if they get knocked, they're not going to fly onto the next planet. Or it's just for that customization of we've then made custom meeples, but I don't think a smaller size counts as a custom meeple. The iconography is quite easy to understand. The only one that we found a bit tricky was the meeple with the spinny circle around him to say that you can change colour, and that's just down to us not reading it properly a couple of times. I do feel like adding words to these cards wouldn't help at all. I feel like the iconography is clear in itself. One thing that we did get tripped up on in the first instances was the track to track how many medals you've got. And that's because my partner believed, and I believed initially, that that was your score and you were gaining that, and that's how you gain more victory points. But I think the terms may have needed to be more clear, but that's only a tiny little thing. And again, if we'd given that rule book a second read through once we'd played it, we'd have got that almost immediately. That's down to us more than anything. The theme is meant to be, and I say meant to be very, very gingerly, it's meant to be space. Now my partner and a couple of the other people that we've played this with don't like space. It is like a big taboo for them. They will not play space themed games because, well, I think we've ran them into the ground. We've played them so much, but they'll play Ganymede because it doesn't feel like it's a space game. There's no intergalactic combat. There's no aliens from outer space. You are effectively building smaller settlements on new locations. You're moving meeples from one location to the other. And as much as Ganymede is a lovely idea, you know, getting people from Earth to settle on Mars, getting people on Mars to settle on Ganymede, ready to go off on their adventure into space to settle distant worlds, you could have changed that and made it a historic theme and changed it to moving from, I don't know, make it Viking themed and make it the Vikings moving from Norway or any of the other locations. You could have made it the Vikings moving from their homelands to Iceland, and then from Iceland to what they would class as the New World in America, and that would have worked as well. I like the fact that it is space, I'm going to say themed again, but it's very loose and it helps with the artwork and it does build that idea, but the mechanics themselves lend themselves so nicely to so many themes that, not to its detriment, but to its benefit, because I feel like then people just see it as a game that's enjoyable to play because they're trying to complete objectives. Take that what you will with a pinch of salt. If you are into space games, it is a space game because it's got the space artwork, the space theme. Everything is oriented around doing things to make sure that you have got people ready in space to settle locations. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it isn't a theme that couldn't be just stripped off and have another one put on top without any issues. A couple of terms, one or two maybe, but nothing else really. Replayability for Ganymede is present because the cards are so different across the board. You've got lots and lots of different settler tiles as well that are going to trigger in different ways. And it's less about having a brand new experience every time, but maybe trying different tactics and trying to master the game. As I've said, our scores are always 90% of the time below 20. So knowing that you want to try and improve that, having that personal track of when you can beat that score and improving yourself and trying to find that perfect scenario, that perfect tactic. But again, because the cards are so different and because the setup is always the same, but with the randomness of a card shuffle, you're not always guaranteed to get that perfect game. So I think it's also about being able to play on the fly and make it so that you can easily adapt your strategy. And now, who is the game for? Well, it's not a heavy game. It's not a heavy game by any measure. It's not one that is going to keep you up at night thinking about how you could have, what you could have, where you could have. The game is very much reliant on other people's actions and your ability to work within those constraints of what people choose to do and how you're going to then choose a different action. That's not saying the game isn't suitable for someone who is more of a gamer's gamer. The game is definitely perfect for entry level. A nice introduction to a tiny bit of engine building, more set collection than anything. But realistically, I'd definitely say this is the perfect filler for any games night or the perfect warm-up. I wouldn't say this is the main event on many occasions. My partner and I, whenever we've been tired at night after a long day at work, have chosen to play Ganymede over other games because it's easy to set up, quick to play, enjoyable, and quick to pack away. If we were wanting to get a bit more meat on the bones, we may choose Ganymede as a warm-up or as a midway game between two bigger games, but it's not the one that we choose as the heavy hitter. That said, this is a game that I have played multiple times in an evening. and still enjoyed it and still wanted to play some more. So again, it's one of those, if you enjoy space-themed games or set collection or, again, engine building in the loosest sense of the term, it's a good game and it's really enjoyable. Who's this not for? If you're looking for something that is big, meaty, lots of space references, lots of integrated tactics, and lots of easy to manipulate, trackable elements where you can force those combos into existence, then probably not for you. The idea of a card shuffle is randomness, and if you're looking for a game where you can master it and show that mastery off, this isn't that. This is more about adaptability than mastery. So, final thoughts. Ganymede is a game that we've really enjoyed as a filler and as a game that we played repeated times over a night. It's not too heavy, it's really accessible. The theme, as much as I've just said that you can take it off and slap a new one on, it's there. And the artwork is gorgeous and all the components feel really, really nice. I like the idea that you're trying to settle on Ganymede to go off into space. Other people might like it if you were trying to settle on an island on a boat to set people off into the new worlds and such. It just depends on what your flavour of theme is on preference. The game's going to be perfect for newcomers, for small groups, for people who are just wanting a quick game of something that doesn't rely on mastery, but relies on adaptability. Anybody could pick this game up, and as long as they've got the ability to work on the fly and work within the constraints of other people's actions, they're going to do really well, and it's enjoyable. I'd recommend Ganymede. I think it's a really enjoyable game. I acknowledge there are a couple of little itty bits that maybe don't quite work for everybody, and maybe some elements that could be a bit more refined to make it less adaptability than mastery, but for a filler game, for a 20-25 minute quick session, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's one that you should definitely check out. As always, thank you ever so much for sticking around and listening to this review. I will catch you next time.